Hello, friends. We are interested in the geography of our views, so please like and write in the comments from which city are you watching us, and were there loud stories of betrayal in your city? Share your stories with us. Maybe the next betrayal story will be from your city. And we start. The hot Texas evening melted the asphalt, and the sweet smell of burnt gasoline floated over the Austin suburbs like stagnant water in the crack of an endless summer. Avery Holt, tall, broad-shouldered, with a close-cropped head, stood at the wrought iron gates of the mansion he was temporarily guarding. There's a cheap plastic watch on my hand and scattered fragments of that distant, dusty Afghanistan in my head. With a habitual gesture, he checked the holster, although he knew that the pistol was no longer there. In the civilian sphere, sudden movements are not needed, sharp smiles are needed. But the muscles still remembered the recoil, and at night dreams where the sand wheezes on the teeth and tears the lungs. When the shift ended, Black Hole Sun fell out of the broken speaker of the old pickup truck, and he nervously tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, trying not to think. The house was located in the shade of huge plane trees rich, with perfectly painted columns in the style of southern Greece. Outside a picture for a glossy magazine. Inside, Avery could already feel the paint cracking. The garage doors quietly rose to greet the owner. The house is cool from the air conditioners and empty from the silence. Clara was usually still working at this time, editing other people's posts, choosing a good angle for someone's campaign. Her glass of Chardonnay often waited on the edge of the kitchen counter like a beacon, and today it also sparkled like a transparent drop on the marble. But there was no one on the sofa. He walked into the bedroom. It smelled of expensive lavender spray and someone else's subtle cologne. It smelled like testers smell in department stores. A stranger, a man who was convinced he was leaving an impression. On the bedside table, the iPhone screen flashed and went silent. Avery could just make out the name GM. He only knew one IM. A neighbor from the house across the street, Julian Mays. A sleek, well-groomed millionaire with the smile of an advertising surgeon. The one who nods to all the women on the street and never touches the hands of men longer than politeness requires. Avery? Clara's voice was heard from behind in the corridor, high-pitched, adjusted to the right intonations. You're home early. She appeared in the doorway as if she had emerged from the cover of a magazine. A white silk blouse, tight black trousers with a high belt, buttons sparingly undone just enough to draw a promise. According to her perfect styling, not a single stray hair. Traffic was light. He shrugged. The work ended early. Clara smiled, but the corners of her eyes did not move. She looked at the phone, picked it up, ran her fingers through it, and put it in her pocket. A small movement, almost imperceptible, but he felt a cold shock inside, as if someone had reloaded the shutter. "Did you have dinner?" he asked. "Had a snack in the city. We have a shelf of cheese and—" She hesitated, as if she had forgotten her line. "I'll make up for everything, okay?" He nodded, trying to read between the lines. But the lines were stubbornly hidden. The veteran was used to working with field reports, where each bloodstain meant coordinates. But here the alphabet was different. Likes, stories, sudden trips to a meeting, Swedish cologne. Late at night, Avery went out onto the balcony. On the lawn, the sparkling drops of the automatic sprinkler reflected the moon. In the house opposite, there are lights like impatient tongues. Down by Julian's pool, young girls in sparkly dresses that looked more like candy wrappers were laughing. The music flowed like thick honey syrup. He made out the silhouette of the surgeon himself. A light white shirt, a relaxed manner of holding a glass, a man who had everything worked out. Avery wanted to turn off the light, but stayed in the shadow of the curtain to watch. So he spent hours watching the Afghan streets before a sortie, looking for the unthinkable, for something that would reveal explosives under a pile of rags. Now the explosive was his own family. The morning reminded me of itself through the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Avery came down and saw his stepdaughter, Emma, sitting on the kitchen island, dangling her bare foot and scrolling through her phone. She always had that light-hearted erotica of college freedom, a t-shirt whose sleeves fell off to reveal an arrow tattoo on her collarbone. "Morning, stepfather," she drawled lazily. You're kind of serious today." "I'm always serious," he muttered and opened the refrigerator. Clara said, "We are going to see Dr. Mays." "No, it's not for me to do breasts," the girl grinned, seeing his raised eyebrow. "Like a charity brunch, PR event, all that. Money on men's health. Funny, right? The men give money to the surgeon so that he can convince them that everything is fine in their pants." Avery closed the door, not finding milk, and asked, "Did he invite you too?" "Everyone invites me," she shrugged. "But I passed. I have exams and—" The girl smiled too widely. "Stream in the evening, donations won't earn themselves." She left, leaving behind the scent of strawberry lip balm. In the quiet hum of the refrigerator, he suddenly realized the house is full of good intentions, but it smells of mold, under a layer of varnished smiles. The work fell through, the object canceled the meeting. He returned in the afternoon, the noise of the engine died down, the garage door closed. Silence hugged the walls again. There was a roar of water in the upstairs bathroom. No one was home except Clara. Avery stood up without saying a name. The door to the bathroom is slightly open. The foggy outline of her silhouette floats in the mirror. The steam is thick, like the hot dog of a battlefield. He sighed, but did not enter boundaries or boundaries. He turned around and almost left when he heard a soft voice. "Julian." A quiet, enveloping sigh, hoarse from steam. He froze. A soldier heard a similar sound when a wounded man called his long-dead mother, or a name that one clings to before death. And then I realized, she is not alone. He pulled the door wide open. The bathroom is empty, only Clara, wet strands on her shoulders. She got scared and covered herself with her palms. "What are you doing?" she shouted. "I thought that." He trailed off. "Sorry." Her gaze became icy. "Don't you dare barge in on me. There are still personal areas left in this family." She walked around him, dripping water onto the mosaic floor, and the smell of lavender gel mixed with something else slightly metallic, like blood, but with a hint of peach. He couldn't name whose scent it was. I just felt the stitches of the old scar on my chest barely sting. Evening. Clara left for a meeting. Emma is on campus. He was left alone. I flipped the switch in the bedroom, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw her bag luxurious, burgundy, with gold fittings. She stood on the chair like a guard dog. The veteran knew. A woman's bag is like a roadblock, don't touch it. But he already overstepped his bounds when he broke into someone else's house to save the group. The only difference is that then he was supported by walkie-talkies, and now only a fading pulse in his temples. He took the bag and calmed his breathing, as if he were doing a stretch. The zipper hissed predatorily. Inside there is a wallet, lipstick, several receipts, an additional phone, disconnected, and a fabric pouch with a drawstring. When he took it out, his fingers trembled treacherously. The skin was smooth, cool. The buzzing in my ears intensified. The bag slipped out and fell. A hectic crack of the clasp, and out rolled out a sex toy made of black silicone, with prominent veins, almost threatening. Next is an eye mask, made of thick leather, with metal rivets along the forehead and cheeks, like a Viking ritual helmet. The clasp is embossed with the initials JM. The room rocked like a helicopter in a sandstorm. He felt empty, deprived of air, but heard his own voice, alien and rough. Crap. The mask lay on the carpet, staring at the empty holes. And in the mirror of the closet is his reflection. Elongated shoulders, a security guard shirt, but his face is unrecognizable, as if someone had cauterized his scars with molten silver. It clicked. The door is downstairs. Vote. He quickly put everything back, but the bag did not want to be tied. The lace was tight. His hands were shaking. He hid it under the lining, zipped the bag, and put it in place. Footsteps walked up the stairs. I needed to breathe. Clara entered. There is a wet gloss on the lips, pink cheeks. He no longer saw the purse. His blurred gaze touched only her lips. "How long have you been home?" she asked, tucking her hair behind her ear. "Lunch was canceled. I spoke in the morning." "Oh yes, I." She took off her coat. "Today we discussed the campaign of a senator. Too loud of a party for a weekday, haha. He clenched his teeth, tasting metal. The words of a sharp knife begged to come out, but he held the handle tightly inside himself. The soldier must know the moment of attack. Not earlier, not later. Instead of answering, he nodded, saying, "I understand." And he went into the kitchen. The film was unwinding in my head. Julian, her whispers in the bathroom, a sex toy, a mask, initials. The puzzle was complete, but the picture was too disgusting for the eyes to rest. He poured himself some water, but his hand shook and some splashed onto the table. He wiped it away quickly, as if hiding the blood. The night was long. Through the gap in the curtain, he could see the surgeon's house again. Shadows slid along the walls. Men entered the gates, well-groomed and richly dressed. The women are younger, with cartoonishly big laughs, like the ghosts of an Instagram filter. And then the light faded, as if someone had turned off their heart. Avery was awake. He sat on the edge of the bed, feeling the fragile warmth of Clara next to him, whose breath gradually lifted the bedspread. Under this veil, perhaps, she hid secrets, wet from the hands of others, and in his hands already lived the once unnecessary power. The whole burden of the previous war, which he considered noble, was returning, ready to break out here, in a peaceful suburb, where mold had already broken through the varnish and was waiting for the first crack. He closed his eyes. In the darkness, the flayed wind of Afghanistan appeared, the smell of burning, screams. And then Julian's face, smooth, smug. He saw fists, sawbones crunch, saw the lights of the neighbor's house go out. Not a dream, but a roadmap for the future. But we must remain silent until dawn. The soldier learns to wait. He trembled, but did not move. Because ahead are still unknown corridors of betrayal, and you can get confused there if you rush ahead of time. We need to prepare the ground. Outside, the sprinklers ticked quietly, and the house, like a huge chest, exhaled warm, sweet air. Somewhere in the kitchen, a digital clock jumped from 2:59 to 3 o'clock. Avery opened his eyes. He wouldn't sleep tonight. Clara rolled over. Her hand lay on his back, as if spontaneously seeking warmth. But he shuddered, as if he had touched an electrode with an exposed nerve. Slowly, he removed her palm and put it back, like a diplomat discharging a mine. And at that moment, I realized, love is a luxury of peacetime. And now another war begins. War under the punctured varnish of a display window defect. And if there is mold in this family, he will cure it with fire. With the first stripes of dawn, he went down. His hand unconsciously unlocked the safe in the office wall, the one he had installed just in case. The cold metal of the pistol fell into the palm of your hand like a long-forgotten oath. He cocked the bolt, checked the chamber, and, locking the weapon in his travel bag, sat down at the table. On the blank page of the notebook, he pressed a pencil. Find evidence. The first birds began to sing outside, and he kept writing. The target is Clara. The goal is to establish treason. The likely accomplice is Jim. The points of the plan grew in lowercase letters. The last line, if confirmed, retribution. When the bedroom door rattled upstairs, he was in the shower, washing away both the heat of the Texas night and the cold of his inner intention. Clara looked into the glass and said that she had made coffee. "Thank you," he replied, hearing restrained screams flowing into the drain. She left. No one noticed how he took out a cassette with a miniature camera from the drawer. The former soldier learned, in order for a wall to fall, you first need to sharpen the base. The Texas morning smelled of fresh asphalt and hot brake pads, as if the city itself was pressing the secrets of each family tightly to the concrete. Avery Holt, silent as the ghost of his own war, closed the trunk of the pickup truck and checked that the case with the surveillance equipment was securely hidden. Inside is a series of eyes, micro cameras on magnets, tiny radio transmitters, and power banks disguised as CR-123 batteries. He bought the equipment through an old Army contact people who were listed as journalist operators in the documents, but in reality they were selling counterintelligence experience for the price of an amateur camera. Neighbors went out to walk their dogs, and someone washed a Jeep. Nobody paid attention to the fit man in overalls. Technicians arrive in this quarter every day. He went up to the porch, unlocked the door, and the silence of the house greeted him with a viscous, wary silence. Clara went to a meeting with a client at 7 in the morning. Emma spent the night on campus, selling donations to her subscribers. Time to act. He started with the most vulnerable one, the outlet in the living room. Staring back at him in the glossy mirrored window was a soldier who once could disassemble an AK-47 by touch. The usual movements returned: unscrew the decorative cover, insert the cable into the plastic channel, snap it back. The camera was the size of a button, and its black lens looked directly at where Clara loved to record stories, on the sofa with champagne-colored pillows. The second camera went into the kitchen, hiding inside the hood. He mounted the third above the stairs, disguising it as a smoke detector. The fourth is in the dressing room, on an adjustable rod with dresses, because they smelled of lavender and someone else's perfume. To each point he glued a glass sticker with a stylized maple leaf. This is how he marked positions in the war. Leaves meant a tracking zone. The most terrible work awaited outside. Clara kept the Audi Q5 like a child, washing every weekend, monthly detailing. To avoid leaving scratches, Avery parked her car next to a workbench under the pretext of checking the tire pressure. In your pocket is a flathead screwdriver. In your fist is a pulse sounding the alarm. He removed the plastic panel under the steering wheel, found the Obd Roman 2 port, and inserted a tiny GPS tracker with an LTE module. The device clicked loudly, so it seemed to him, although the sound was weaker than a mouse sigh. Having secured the second eye above the rearview mirror, he pulled the cable into the ceiling trim. The camera wrote to a Microsoft card, and when parked in Julian's yard, it automatically switched to LTE transmission mode. If Clara stops there for even 20 seconds, Avery will receive a push notification. A stray bead of sweat dripped onto the leather of the dashboard. He wiped it away with the back of his hand. 7 minutes is too long. Go away, he ordered himself. In his office, which smelled of walnut wood and the pride of framed metals, Avery opened a MacBook Pro. My hands remembered another laptop, a dark tent, sand, a satellite signal. He launched a terminal and checked the Tor connection, in case he had to go deeper. Knowing Clara's password, the name of her favorite actress, and the year of her wedding, he logged into iCloud. The first thing that caught my eye was 47 gigabytes of photographs. Glossy selfie icons, fruits, looks for stories, and only a couple of dozen pictures with him. He went through the albums. PR projects, family, backstage, only for friends. The last folder was password protected. He tried to go through the options: Emma's birthdays, the name of the child's dog, but access would not open. Then he went through the post office. In the security section, there is a backup mail that he has not seen before. drmace@private-lab.com. She received an email with a one-time reset code earlier in the morning. There is also a suspicious note in reminders. $=Vic plus black bag. I think Vic is Vicodin and black bag is a recycling code or a joke. He found the synchronized health data from where the pulse and oxygen levels were pulled up. Interesting. Every Wednesday and Friday from 22:15 to 23:30, Clara's heart rate jumped above 150. Cardio training. No. On those same days, the fitness app logged other activities, Category 2 activity, whatever the category means. It's clearly not Zoom yoga. Avery saved the pulse table separately and encrypted it. Now we need real footage. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a push notification flashed on the phone like a flare. Q5 detected. 522 Beachview Drive. This is Julian's house. He opened the stream from the camera in the car. A static picture of a park alley, a glossy frosted glass door reflecting the blue sky. The mirror shine obscured what was happening, but the built-in microphone caught sounds. Distant female laughter, a sharp slam of the door, someone's velvety voice. Relax, baby, no one will see here. Avery turned up the volume. The heart beat evenly, a rhythm imposed by the army. He recorded the WAV stream to disk. Every byte seemed like someone's confession. 20 minutes later, the Audi door slammed again. The sensor transmitted a frame. Clara is sitting down. Her hair is tied. Her lips are inflamed red. She smiles at someone off camera and then wipes away a dark spot from her neck, either a trace of lipstick or a hickey. The car drives away. He could not breathe deeply. His lungs were filled with poisonous fumes of jealousy and old, calloused anger. But it's too early to pull out the saber. We need facts that will screen themselves. In the evening, when the suburbs fell asleep to the chords of crickets, Avery went out in training shorts, as if for a jog. There is a fitness bracelet on the wrist, latex gloves, and a butterfly knife inside the pocket. Under the streetlights, the neighbors' containers resembled ominous altars, wet, smelly, alien. He opened the lid of their trash can with one hand and held his nose with the other. I found a box of condoms inside. Trojan Magnum bearskin almost completely gilded wrapping, like a medal for special services. Inside were 3 used packages, held together by a sweet film of lubricant. Sniffing the remains, he caught a light aroma of vanilla. This was not his and Clara's brand. Next is a bottle of Eros gel lubricant. There are women's fingerprints on the neck, a manicure with rhinestones. Under a layer of newspapers, an ampoule flashed. Transparent glass, a tag with a blue stamp, hydrocodonacetaminophen 10 to 325 milligrams. Vicodin is a painkiller and prescription drug. On the sticker is the logo of the Julian Clinic. "Gather the evidence," whispered the inner sergeant. "Pack, photograph, seal." Avery took off his glove and carefully placed everything in plastic. He held a smartphone in his other hand, taking geotagged and time-stamped photos. Each click of the shutter is a new nail in the future coffin. Wednesday, 22:10. The Q5 is parked outside Julian's house again. The harmony of the suburban darkness was broken only by the bluish light of the pool, where the waves gently licked the side. Avery was sitting in the pickup truck. In the back seat was a duffel bag with a pistol, but psychologically the weapon remained locked, like Pandora's box. In front of him is a tablet monitor, a mosaic of 5 streams. The living room, the staircase, the dressing room, the Audi salon, the entrance camera of the peephole gadget that he placed on the lamp in Julian's gazebo last night. Risky, but without risk there is no war. At 10:27 p.m., the dressing room reflected movement. Clara returned home to change clothes. In her hands was a narrow box, black as piano varnish. She opened it on the ottoman. Inside is a shiny one-piece latex suit, solid zipper, stand-up collar. The mask with metal rings around the eyes and mouth is almost the same, but now without spikes, smooth, polished. She slowly pulled off her blouse. The camera caught how the skin was covered with goosebumps from the cold latex. A smile played on her lips, a lazy, confident crescent. "For you, Doc," she whispered into the void. Then she took a small silver bottle powder, perfume, sprinkled on the neck and chest. With each movement, the dressing room lamp licked her back like a snake, and Avery cursed in a whisper, clenching his jaw until it hurt. He could no longer sit in front of a screen. The veteran turned on the phone and opened the tracker. The Audi's speed was 0. He got out and slammed the pickup door, feeling the gravel scream. The surgeon's yard was surrounded by a fence, but the gap at the gate did not close. You could get caught. He walked, crouching in the shadows, while a distant dog barked on the neighbor's street. But I remembered, it's early. Without a plan, climbing is suicide. The millionaire has too many cameras. He returned and sat down in the cockpit. Pressed rec, let the gadgets gather hell until he gets ready to break down the doors. On the laptop, the password for the folder was never given up. Then he remembered the letter with the code. Julian's mail is a private clinic server. Path, terminal, nmap SV, then dirty vulnerability of the old PHP engine. 20 minutes later, he had root access to the folder. It contains 7 videos and text. Delete after viewing jam. My heart rushed to my throat. He pointed to the most recent file, yesterday's date. The screen blinked. In the frame is a bedroom with tuna-colored neon lamps. A man is lying on the bed, his back abs. The face is hidden by a latex mask hood without holes. There are mirrors along the walls, reflecting the action from a dozen angles at once. Clara strides like a predator on a catwalk, snapping her whip harshly on the unknown man's thigh. In the corner of the picture is a man in a white lab coat, without a mask, but his face is out of focus. Voiceover, baritone with a southern drawl, recognizable, Julian Mays. Deeper, baby, let him feel it. The man on the bed groans. Clara laughs, a laugh Avery has never heard. He froze, as if needles had entered his spine. I zoomed in on the picture and scrolled through it. On the nightstand are glass ampoules, a syringe, and a piece of medical tape. Inscription on the box, lidocaine 2% topical. My hands were shaking, but the professional part of my brain was counting the time codes. Within the personal boundaries called marriage, someone has set up a field hospital for vice. On Thursday morning, he found time to go to Home Depot and buy a Blink smart doorbell under the guise of a security upgrade. While Clara was broadcasting live about some mayoral project, he carefully replaced the wires. Now the call has become the sixth camera in case Julian allows himself a visit in his house. He placed another motion sensor in the trash heap near the garage so that nothing could escape. That same night, he went through the papers in Clara's safe, contracts, NDAs with clients. I found an envelope from the bank with a recent withdrawal of $18,000. Comment, wellness package. Signed, Mace Aesthetics. The notepad has been updated with a new line, $18K encrypted, ask Rose. He remembered Rose, a veteran girl whom he had once saved from drug addiction. She worked as a nurse at the same hospital where Julian studied until she quit. She knew how to unravel the secrets in the basements of aesthetic surgery. Can she be trusted? Doubtful. But sometimes the only way to clean a wound is to pour alcohol on it. Friday, 23:02. The camera in the dressing room is streaming another change of clothes. Now Clara puts on a suit that fits her figure, sparkling like liquid graphite. On the back, there is a keychain with the initials JM on the zipper. She pulls her hair into a ponytail and secures it with a latex elastic. A metal collar with a digital lock is fastened around the neck. Avery feels a thin nerve running from the base of his skull to his tailbone. Her phone screen was reflected in the side corner of the frame. An incoming message from Dr. Julian emoji and location. He already wants to throw the laptop, but discipline evens out his pulse. He must see to the end, even if it is a film shot in hell. The clock shows 0:18 when a new file, automatically uploaded to iCloud, flashes on his desktop. IMD_4921. Mauve. He launches. The dark room is filled with scarlet light. Clara is kneeling at the edge of the bed, her hands cuffed behind her back with shiny handcuff bracelets. On the face, there is the same mask with rings, but now there is a ziplock around the mouth. Her breath whistles like the wind in the crevices of the desert. She looks up, and the camera follows her as if worshiping her. Julian's voice is heard behind the scenes, clear and gentle. Does he really believe that you love him? Clara laughs, muffled, through the fabric. Make a nod or a sleepy bow. The screen goes blank, the file ends. Avery was left in the dark, illuminated only by the ghostly glow of the monitor. There are no more doubts, just 100 grams of the last patience. At that moment, he realized, from now on in this house, there really is nothing sacred, and if the gods need victims, he will choose them himself. The night sky of Austin lay over the suburbs like a tight leather case, warm and stuffy, as if someone had hidden the stars in a safe with poor ventilation. The digital clock on the bedside table flashed 1:37 as Avery Holt's eyes snapped open. The alarm clock did not ring, but the body, trained by war and a week of betrayal, skillfully felt the shifts in the air. The house moved like a wounded animal that they are trying not to kill, but it still howls. An unfortunate creaking sound came from the corridor. Not the long, viscous one that Clara makes as she returns on tiptoe. This one was impatient, light. I'm young, I can. Emma. 19 years of concentrated sass under a Harley Quinn t-shirt, over which she threw a college jacket so as not to anger her stepmother. She loved sex, likes, and money. Sometimes it seemed to her that these three words were synonyms, just written in different fonts. Avery stood up slowly, his bare feet barely touching the hardwood floor. His shadow was reflected in the mirror on the closet door. A short, route wardrobe, gray sweatpants, a dark t-shirt, on top a barely noticeable holster with a fixed knife. He moved around the house as if he was patrolling the streets of Kabul. He remembered every crossbar, every viewing angle by heart. At the bottom of the stairs, the phone's flashlight came on. Emma whispered into the phone. "Yes, I already jumped out. 2 minutes. Gray house with columns. Yeah. No, 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 Mom. She's probably banging the dock." She laughed quietly. The syllables flowed like sweet syrup, but in Avery's ears they rang like metal casings. He pressed himself against the wall, letting her pass by. A short black dress, tight to the body, fishnet stockings, a thick snake of a gold chain on the ankle. The perfume smelled of candy rum and cigarette mint, a cocktail of wild, irresponsible youth. Through the stained glass window, the hallway night light carved turquoise shadows onto her face. The girl looked back for a second, freezing as if she sensed surveillance, but noticed only the sleeping walls. The door closed softly, like a silken slap. Where is Clara? The usual question tingled in the veins. Her beige Tesla had been gone since 8 p.m. The black-haired surgeon neighbor was having a business dinner at a yacht bar, according to the story. Emma runs away when the house is empty, made a note by the internal investigator. Avery returned to the office, opened the tracking panel. Cameras in the living room, in the kitchen, in the garage, emptiness. The pickup showed a warning. Q5 idle. So Clara is still out of the house. He switched to the camera above the door, an image from outside. An Uber Black stopped at the curb, a black Lincoln Navigator, license plate 8SN5D874. The driver flashed his headlights. Emma sat in the back seat, glancing at the second-floor windows. Yes, she suspected surveillance, but teenage drive often overpowers paranoia. The Navigator started moving. On Avery's screen, the GPS marker slowly moved toward the center 6th Street, downtown. He pressed Start Active Tail. The plan was simple, not to pursue physically to give her freedom, but to see everything. A few months ago, he installed a company VPN on Emma's phone for campus security. The hub collected metadata. Last night, he turned on Wi-Fi packet collection, and now lines of traffic were pouring into the terminal. TikTok, Instagram, and then Telegram with an unknown IP address. Telegram, weapons of generations who do not trust either their mothers or Facebook. While fighting, Avery more than once encountered the spirits of IP-forwarding teenagers are as good as terrorists at encrypting sins. He entered the command midem proxy cert spoof, intercepting certificates. But Telegram authorization was based on two factors. Physical access to her laptop or phone was needed. The phone went to downtown Austin, but the laptop, an old MacBook Air, lay in Emma's bedroom. A funny swarm of stickers. Good vibes only. Cash at me. He went up to her room. The lock was lazy, childish micro pin 4 digits. After a couple of unsuccessful combinations, he pressed 0613, the birthday of her ex-rapper boyfriend. The castle made a noise and surrendered. The inside smelled of strawberry gum and sleep-deprived electronics. A garland with hearts was blinking above the bed. A laptop was burning on the nightstand. The lid was closed. The login password is butterfly dollar. Simple psychometrics. Yesterday, she wore a butterfly bracelet on her wrist. The desktop lit up with pink fireworks. Telegram has been launched. He did not immediately decide to dig, feeling the border. Listen, she's almost your daughter. The voice of conscience was weak, but still alive. Avery shoved it into the memory vault and clicked the Saved Messages tab empty. Rare contacts, nicknames with thick emojis. Hidden chats is more interesting. The slider was turned on. The categories were hidden. He brought up the menu developers. The script displayed hidden dialogues. The chat was called Fun Party. There is a whole museum of GIFs and addresses, contracts for sessions, prices. Avatar is a mask of Venice against a background of pink handcuffs. Dante's Loft, a dank loft club in East Austin, a former coffee warehouse erased from city maps, but appears in every third TikTok video about secret raves. The address matched the Uber dot crawling on the map. He copied the history of the dialogue. From 6 weeks ago, a photo of Emma and four other girls in their underwear, all wearing masks, posing on a table with a platter of oysters. In the corner of the frame, there is a white patterned wall. He knew this interior, the foyer of the maze house. Heartbeats separated the hour from the minute. He opened the Telegram documents folder. There is a video. The length of the video is 2:03. Avery launched. First dark red light. A wide mat table surrounded by people in various masks. The camera moves along the hands. Someone is pouring champagne. Someone is lying out white pills. And then the frame freezes. Clara is sitting in the center of the table. She is wearing a latex corset bodysuit. The cutouts reveal her breasts. A familiar steel collar sparkles around his neck. Next to her, crouching on her knees, Emma is wearing a transparent bodice with an arrow tattoo playing on her collarbone. The girl sticks out her tongue, and there is a scarlet triangle of pills on it. Good girl, the bass sounds off screen, and although the face is out of focus, the voice unmistakably belongs to Julian Mays. Then the picture shakes, someone takes the phone from his hands and puts it in his pocket like classified evidence. Avery froze. The pulse beat so loudly in my temples that it seemed as if the echo would spread throughout the house and knock on the doors. It can't be. They, together? Even mentally, the phrase was falling apart. He rewinded, slowed down. Yes, this is Clara. Yes, this is Emma. The same bag lies on the table. The edge of a whip with a gold handle sticks out of it. He turned off the sound so as not to hear more moans. My vision was blurry, as if someone had poured salt water into my eyes. Fingers found a keyboard shortcut, downloaded the file to an external SSD, and encrypted it using AES 256. Proof was a word that now burned like acid. He closed the laptop, but the screen went dark too slowly, emitting a long post-mortem flash. The night stretched like rusty wire. At 5:43, Uber returned its swallow. Avery watched through the gate. Emma came out, staggering, eyes shining. The dress was wrinkled, the chain on the leg was torn and hung like a broken prisoner's bracelet. She leaned against a column and punched in the code on the door panel. At home, a quiet squeak of refusal was heard. The fingers were trembling. On the second try, the system started up. The girl took off her shoes at the threshold and threw them like starfish. Avery stood in the shadow of the stairs without turning on the light. He waited for her to reach her room, counting his steps as if aiming a mortar. But after the 8th step, Emma froze. She felt the gaze on her back. She turned. "Oh my God, you almost killed me," he hissed in a whisper, pressing his palms into his chest. "Are you sick in the head? Why are you standing here like a maniac? Where were you?" Avery's voice is quiet, even, but there is grinding steel in his veins. "At a party. Sorry, I don't report to the guard," she snorted. "Relax, Dad. Everyone is hanging out. You're drunk." "A little. An adult, by the way." Her eyes slid down, as if checking to see if he was armed. When she saw the holster, she grimaced. "Seriously? Are you at home with toys too?" He didn't answer. Only a dull stomach knew. One more question, and the last remnants of trust would crumble. He stepped back into the darkness, as if giving her a corridor. The girl walked past, throwing over her shoulder. "Maybe you should go to bed, or are you afraid that your stepmother will not return until the morning?" Her bedroom door slammed shut. Then the latch lock hit. "She thinks I'm a scarecrow. They count everything." An inner voice reported, "Or maybe it is." He turned on the kitchen faucet and splashed ice water on his face. His head appeared in the reflection on the dark screen of the stove. A military man who had no place on the peace map. By 7 in the morning, Clara returned. The Tesla floated silently into the garage, the doors opening gracefully, like the petals of a cosmic tulip. He looked into the camera and saw her taking off her heels carefully, now without the euphoria of the previous evening. The dress is wrinkled, but not latex, just regular gray silk. The makeup was touched up too carefully, which means she washed off more than the mascara. She entered the house and walked past the kitchen, where he was sitting as if he had accidentally woken up. "You're early," she said, looking through him. "Work," he answered dryly. She poured water and took a sip. A few seconds of silence. "Is Emma home?" asked. "I came an hour ago." He studied her face. "Is there anticipation, annoyance, or fear in your gaze?" "Fine. I'll have to talk to her about discipline." Clara tapped her nails on the glass. "I'm taking a shower." She went upstairs, and the silence of the house turned into a devastating roar. They are both hiding, but together, the puzzle was taking shape that he feared. Later, after making sure that Emma was asleep, he screwed a button recorder into the head of her bed. The device responded to the keywords Clara, Julian, party. While working, he felt the abomination of the act. Soldiers do not fight with children. But Emma is no longer a child, but a pawn in someone else's game, which can become a piece if she learns to walk. The day went smoothly. There was security at an empty mansion. The client was a family of Indian telecom tycoons who took the children to Disneyland. On a night when a translucent fog of neon-lit moisture particles hung over Austin, Avery Holt's black pickup truck parked along an alley where only the glint of wet cobblestones revealed the existence of a road. A few steps away, the club sign flickered Valve, a place that was whispered about as if the very word could burn your lips. Paper magazines called it an underground art bar, but those who saw the back office knew that it would be more correct to say the hub. The knot where money, power, and what causes people to erase their browser history at night are intertwined. Holt pulled on a dark baseball cap, hid his gaze under the straight visor, and joined the flow that stood at the entrance. The line, although short, moved slowly. The face controls staged a silent examination of the cost of the outfit and the impudence of the smile. Avery didn't smile at all. Instead, he gave the security guard a card for his personal assistant to a private client, the fictitious Mr. Armstrong, with a phone number that redirected to a paid answering machine. The plastic flashed with a barcode, and the red scanner gave out a green light. The security guard, a tightly knit muscle block with an earpiece, nodded curtly. "Come in, sir." The inside smelled of wood smoke, musky perfume, and the metallic cold of air conditioning. Light from the ceiling fell in portions, cutting out from the twilight either a bar island with bottles the color of burning rubies or sofas covered in fabulous leather. The music didn't thunder, it lived as a separate entity, reminiscent of the hum of distant turbines, exactly the kind Avery heard on night patrols in Afghanistan. He immediately noticed Julian Mays. He was sitting on the second tier, not in a separate office, but behind the glass, like an exhibit that should be seen from the hall. In a half-open tuxedo jacket with an impeccable hairstyle, the surgeon held a glass of whiskey as if it contained a store of ambition. There were girls on both sides, vinyl dresses, smooth knees, serene smiles. Everything looked decent enough not to raise questions in public, and enough hints to provoke the price of admission to the secret continuation of the evening. Avery didn't go upstairs. He knew that the main target today was not Mace. The goal is to find a guide to the lair where the surgeon hid his sins under the guise of a medical protocol. At the bar, he saw a woman whom he had heard about from an old army brother, Rose Marchenko. She kept to herself, like those who are used to relying on their own shoulders. Short brown haircut, an aura of casual strength, a snake tattoo behind the ear. On the countertop is a glass of amber bourbon without ice and a bag of flax seed tablets with vitamin C, a pharmacy habit of people who once worked in intensive care. He didn't have to make the first move. She looked at him as if she was leafing through a personal file. "Sergeant Holt, if memory serves," she said in English, but without a Texas accent, more like a Chicago one. He tensed. The form of address, Sergeant, could mean both a greeting and a warning. "We met at the Indigo checkpoint in Helmand," she clarified, as if dissecting a fact. "I remember Indigo," he nodded. "Only you were carrying boxes of morphine back then." "And then I carried something more powerful," she grinned. "The scars still seem to hum when the bass thunders." She took a sip, watching his eyes scan the room. Holt wanted to check if Mace's people were following him, but Rose confidently took the initiative. Did the old raven peck you, Holt? Why did you come to the brood of predators? Personal debts, he said briefly. Amazing. The Valve Club lives on personal debts, she nodded. Some pay with money, others with their reputation, and others with their bodies. Choose a cash register. I select information, he said, placing his elbow on the counter. So you've come to the right place. But the market here is expensive. Rose pushed her glass away, looking him straight in the eyes. Show me what you pay for. He slowly pulled a photo out of his inner pocket, an ordinary glossy postcard with a shot of Julian's mansion on one side and a QR code on the other. This code contains a link to the cloud, where part of the evidence he collected was stored. Clara's correspondence, ampoules with the recipe, recordings of hidden cameras. Rose ran her fingernail over the photo. The screensaver is decent. What does the cargo weigh? Enough to douse a fragile career with gasoline. But I need a wick. The woman leaned back, examining him as if on an X-ray. This doctor treats other people's complexes with a scalpel and his own with pills and cameras. The flow of clients is endless because sins are a renewable resource. But hidden beneath its beauty is an attic where the light of the law does not reach. I know the password to this attic. She spoke quietly, but every word cut like a scalpel. And in exchange for the photo, you will just share it, Holt clarified. Not easy. Rose pushed her glass towards him, as if inviting him into an agreement. I also have a score to settle with Julian and your Clara. Or rather, what she did to me. They retreated to the back hallway, where the sound of music muffled the concrete ribs of the walls. The red service-only lamp trembled, as if it did not dare to go out completely. I worked here as a nurse when Valve first launched, Rose began. Then it was an experiment, a club with a medical license for health cocktails. I took intravenous vitamins until they turned the booths into film sets, and off we go. Holt's eyes narrowed. He tried not to show it, but he was already shaking inside. Any pavilion underground, even if nothing seems to be broken there, is just a step away from disaster. Clara came as a PR director. Beautiful, cold, convincing. She brought the clinic to influential families. While promoting the brand, she also selected girls who needed money. Have you become one of them? Asked Holt. No, I was a medic, not a model. But one day, an authoritative witness was needed, ready to say that the drug at the party was legal. Clara convinced me that this was a formality. In the letter, she called me a girl from a trusted circle. She looked down. The client turned out to be one of those who likes games with fear. When it was all over, I had a cut forehead and 3 broken ribs, and Clara went to the Dominican Republic vacation after a difficult project. The silence between them grew thicker. Holt felt the old army rage rising. If you didn't save someone, it means you have to save at least something later. I can make Clara and Mace feel every broken bone, he said evenly, but his voice burned through the space. Rose smiled at the corner of her lips. I can see it in your eyes. You don't play with threats. But we need to play more subtly. You can't return honor by cracking your joints, but influencing your reputation and money is worse than torture. She took out her tired phone and dialed the code. A map of Austin with 3 red dots appeared on the screen. This is base. She touched the first point, an elite area west of the river. There is the Belle Ecourse Salon. On the top floor, there is a regular spa. On the floor below, there are rooms for special procedures. Each room has built-in cameras. The stream goes to an encrypted server. She noted the second point in the industrial zone. Laboratory is a warehouse for health preparations. The parties are nominally assigned to May's charitable foundation, but are essentially distributed among private parties. The third point is a private house outside the city. Retreat. Mays takes the chosen ones there so that the meditation does not disturb the neighbors. Rumors say that if any equipment rides on jammers, the signal is blocked. Do you know the access codes? Asked Holt. Codes change every day. but I know how to get them. The head administrator, Tracy, is fiercely devoted to Clara. She takes the accounting books to Maze once a week. There's a chatty courier, Rose nodded toward the back entrance, where uniformed men were carrying boxes labeled massage oils. He loves the cheap Vicodin incense that is sold in pharmacies 24/7. Give him 2 boxes, and he'll stamp your card like a VIP check. Holt grinned. Bribery for exactly the same drug, which is later sold at exorbitant prices. So that's the plan. He set his shoulders firmly. You enter as a medical guest, you still have a valid badge. I am like personal security for a client who needs the maximum confidential package. Rose adjusted the collar of her jacket. What next? Then you lead me to the server room. I pick up copies of the video and internal logs. If there is a chance, we will open the accounting room, offshore numbers and signatures. And who will see the recordings? Holt thought. Footage flashed before my eyes where Clara and Emma were whispering about his breakdown. He told himself that he was acting for the sake of truth, but he understood. Half of the motive was the desire to hear the crackle of their self-confidence. First, my lawyer, then a couple of reporters who hate political glamour. After that, all public space. Rose smiled widely for the first time. What if it gets hot in the club? She narrowed her eyes. He nodded towards the exit. There's a combat bag in the trunk of my pickup. But taking the weapons inside is Plan B. Plan A is to force them to surrender to the world, so that every client sees the news and understands where his money went, so that their own elite brand becomes toxic. You want to hit the wallet, Rose concluded. And for the ego, he added. Clara values money only because it buys illusion. I will take both from her. They returned to the hall. Maze was already heading towards the exit, surrounded by a broken satin of smiles and phone cameras that were trying to catch a shot of the famous doctor. Rose stepped closer to Holt, as if checking how he looked as an ally against the backdrop of this ball. Tomorrow at 6 in the evening, I will go through the Belle Licourse reception. In 8 minutes, the elevator will go down. If your pass doesn't work, improvise, she whispered. I remember the static 3 signal, he confirmed. Don't pull the trigger until I get the staff out of the aroma steam room. The girls there are ordinary, not aware of the scheme. I have no desire to scare innocent people. She touched his shoulder not affectionately, but as if a doctor were checking his pulse. Holt, I see that spark. Burn the feast with them, but do not burn yourself. He wanted to answer that he had been living in the ashes for a long time, but he restrained himself. Instead, he looked back at the glowing exit, where Julian was already getting into the limousine. The silhouette of a woman with blonde hair flashed nearby, not Clara, but from her collection. He won't even remember their names, Rose noted, following his gaze. But mine will remember, he said dryly. At the exit, they parted with a gesture in which there was neither an embrace nor a formal handshake, just a light touch of fingers. This was enough. Both understood that tomorrow they could meet the night in different parts of the city, but were connected by one goal. In the pickup, Holt lowered the seat and opened his duffel bag. The pistol, lying there disassembled, suddenly seemed unnecessary. Instead, he took out a small bug camera and checked the battery. The war taught us. Sometimes the deadliest shot is a flash from a camera at the right time. The engine started, and the first drops of rain hit the windshield. Not loudly, as if someone was tapping, checking to see if the metal still sounded solid. Avery Holt knew that there was rage already molten within that metal. But it will come out not with bullets, but with facts. Facts that tear apart masks are no worse than a cue. He turned on the headlights and slowly drove out onto the empty street, where the word damage trembled in the reflections of the puddles. It accompanied him as the city sank into dawn gray, preparing for a day that would split into 2 halves, a before and an after. 2 days before his scheduled spa retreat, Austin once again found himself under a warm thunderstorm, the humid air clinging to his skin like a film of anticipation. In the back garage of Rose's house, a 3D printer head whirred silently, spitting out a dummy housing for a micro camera. a black plug bolt that would later replace one of the podium screws in Julian's living room. While the layer of plastic cooled, Avery leaned over the table, checking the surgeon's party map, red circles with press appearance times, blue security dots, and black arrows for possible withdrawal. Plans are born on paper, but become deadly only when they grow into a network. Rose was to become the network, her and the laptop on her lap, her fingers tapping faster than the rain. Through the old nurse's account, she made her way step by step into the root directories of the Mays Clinic. A directory soon surfaced in the file dump /archive /premium. Thumbnails of covers of sports training, behind which were hidden video streams of cameras from the basement salon. "This is the heart of the gray business," Rose whispered and opened the Payments tab. The content was sold through a phantom cosmetics store, and the money was dissolved in the offshore Dove Regatta Limited. Holt wrote out this name on a yellow sticky note and stuck it to the board next to dozens of others, thus a web of interdependencies was born. Friday evening. The karaoke room on the fourth floor of the surgeon's mansion shimmered with neon. Today, another charity party was supposed to gather here on billboards around the city. It was advertised as a dinner for the benefit of the Health of Urban Veterans Foundation. Among the guests are football players, bankers, shady brokers. Supercar fenders sparkled in the parking lot, and even the rain turned into flashes reflected by the body varnish. Avery was the last to move in, introducing himself as Mr. J. Brown, a fake name from the accounting department of one of Clara's boutique companies. He was allowed through thanks to his company badge and the envelope thrust to the guard. He walked down the corridor with a light case in his hand. Inside was a plastic bolt camera, a flash repeater, and a tiny Wi-Fi router that sent data to Rose's hedged server. According to the security legend, the case was listed as equipment for broadcasting interviews. Mays loved it when people filmed about him. When the waitresses began serving out the first vitamin shots, Avery managed to screw in an eye bolt under the second-floor balustrade. The camera looked down onto the stage, where most of the toasting took place, and towards the quiet zone reserved for whispers and quick deals. A minute later, the picture was already moving along an encrypted tunnel into the basement of Rose's house, where a bush of miniature screens grew on the monitor. A poker table, a massage capsule, a bar with rare whiskey. While Avery was putting on a smile, Rose attacked the second line Clara's PR agency, Holt Public Presence. The company's online facade was polished. Corporate videos about brand integrity, glam articles about female entrepreneurs. Behind it is a server on the old Sims. 40 minutes, 2 vulnerabilities, and Rose was reading the house briefs. There, in addition to advertising plans, files were stored VIP Relations XLSX. The table contains the names of judges, state senators, fund managers, and in the adjacent cells there are notes. Consultation showed interest in discrete footage. Advance $50K. 3 times she stopped. The names were too recognizable. For example, the Travis County judge, the same one whose signature was approved by the family will of wealthy philanthropists. Clara led each VIP separately, a consultation in a spa boutique, a trial detox capsule, then a party for the elite. Rose downloaded the entire catalog and replaced the original with a BOM file. The table looked the same, but a week later it should automatically be sent to a number of journalistic addresses as soon as Clara logs into the system using her login. Delayed strike, Rose grinned. Meanwhile, Clara came out into the karaoke room to applause a silver mesh dress, the gait of a steel tenor. She announced, "The fund has already raised $200,000, and this is just the beginning." Behind her, like a royal standard, glowed a huge animation of a heartbeat. The applause drowned out even the bass line, but Avery heard a vibration in his ear through the loaded sound, a signal from Rose. "Documents in the cloud. I'm starting to edit boutique accounting. Hold the audience, we need half an hour." Holt switched to distraction mode. He walked up to the counter, ordered an expensive bourbon, and raised his glass triumphantly as if yet another premium package payer. At this point, Mays, noticing the new face, came forward to say hello. "I don't remember that we met. Julian Mays." J. Brown. Defense Consulting, Holt said without hesitation, handing the surgeon a dummy business card with a non-C number on it. The usual courtesy, and May's moves on grabbing band notes for a photo. Meanwhile, Rose was in her basement changing the numbers. In the accounting reports of the boutiques where Clara launched Masks for Youth, false purchases of rare sedatives and payments to unit-like accounts appeared. This is how evidence of illegal trade in prescriptions was formed. She signed the files themselves with Clara's electronic certificate, stolen that same evening. Now any check will see whose digital signature is under the false check. The second floor was empty closer to midnight. Many went to the closed lounge room. Holt waited until only 2 bodyguards remained in the corridor and headed towards the emergency staircase. The door to the basement was guarded by a finger scanner and a code. A short phrase came from Rose, 7401. He put the finger of a glove with a printed print overlay, taken back in Maze's salon. Rose managed to slip the glass to the administrator, and the plastic film removed the fat from it. The lock clicked dully. The technician on duty, seeing the stranger, stood up, but Holt put the badge under his nose and without a word pulled out a USB token, inspection report. The man sat back because he was thinking about time the night was long and about the bonus that he didn't want to lose. The server racks buzzed like beehives. Holt found a marked NAS Phoenix V, inserted a relay token. The FANG program started. Terabyte records began to be encrypted under the guise of final archiving. At the same time, copies were flying through the tunnel to Rose. Excerpts of VIP sex, May's negotiations with drug buyers, audio of an accountant explaining to the judge that an investment in health is converted into intangible dividends. Emma's recording was a separate file. A day earlier, Avery activated a voice beacon in her bedroom, where the girl was doing stream makeup. After some light jokes, the confession began. Mom said, "Now we need to push. Stepfather is almost on the verge. She says that if we secure the result, he will give away the house and part of the business. And I don't know, I think I like the game. The main thing is not to fall in love with solitaire." Rose watermarked Emma's voice with a timestamp and a data bank. The video went into the evidence_Avery folder. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. The guests are in pairs. Some are already moving to the garage, where Maze runs an impromptu boy pool, a room for betting on private dances. Holt, merging with the crowd, sees an elderly man with a tenacious gaze being led into a spare office, the county judge. Clara glides by, checking to see if the judge's smartphone is sealed with a disposable protector. This scene falls into the lens of the Bolt. 5 minutes later, the camera records Clara whispering to the judge in a dimly lit room. No flashes. An hour and everyone is relaxed. Hold the curtains, sir. She kisses the judge on the cheek, close enough for the lens to remember the lipstick. At this time, Maze, in another wing of the house, enters a chrome photo zone with 3 models. Holt notices their signature cat masks from the camera. The doctor says, 5 minutes without phone cameras, my cameraman will take only the best angles. But he doesn't know that Holt's operator is already writing. Almost simultaneously, Julian's tablet receives push notifications. Traffic limit exceeded. Critical archive error. He rushes to the server room, but sees a technician who throws up his hands. "It just started, doctor." Ordering the stand to be restarted, Maze calls Clara. "The archive has broken down. Check your guys." Clara froze with a glass at her lips, and another notification pops up on her screen from the accounting department. Confirm the expenditure of $185,000 on the product Liposlim XD. She blinks. They didn't buy anything like that. Around the nearest corner, Rose, observing the reaction, notes the timecode. 0:43. The web begins to tighten. In the corner of the hall, Holt runs into Emma. The girl pulls him by the lapel, half jokingly, half challengingly. "Guard, are you looking for something? It's fun here." She is tipsy, but her eyes shine feverishly. She sees in him the one who must break. He responds with a cold nod, and the girl retreats, feeling the steel beneath the ice. Holt felt cold. On her neck, there was a new key pendant, the symbol he had seen on the lock in the spa basement. This means that Clara entrusted her daughter with the pass of fear. Rose sends the final signal, time X. She launched the Gorgon script on social networks. The VIP release should begin to speed up at exactly 9 o'clock, when news editors come to the office. The script will create a leak, pump up tweets with screenshots of offshore receipts and previews of blurry frames. But one thing was missing: a public name. Holt knew it was time to take the stage. He walked up to the podium where he had previously worked as a DJ. He took off his baseball cap and threw a spotlight into the crowd. The audience did not understand at first, but the sound protected by the system was turned off after a short press of the hidden switch. "Ladies and gentlemen," Holt's voice boomed, "your charity evening is moving into the audit stage. I advise everyone to check their accounts. Evidence of those who drank today under the guise of caring for veterans is already on its way to independent journalists." Noise, screams, hangover, panic. 3 seconds, and the giant screen behind him lights up. It shows the first frame. Clara kisses the judge on the cheek, next to the scrolling headline of a news site. Next is a photo of Julian with models and the caption, "The cost of a health session is $25,000. People rushed to the exits. Someone tore their collars to hide their faces. From the balcony, Rose sends a short, "It's time," to Holt. He jumps off the podium and disappears into the crowd. The security is trying to block the doors, but the guests are already opening the back doors like cockroaches, escaping from the light. It's raining harder outside. Avery and Rose get into the pickup truck, and the windshield wipers smear the red glare of sirens across the glass. Someone managed to call the police, either to complain about the burglary or to hide the evidence with their own hands. "Did we make it?" Rose asks, breathing heavily. "The web is stretched," Holt replies. "Tomorrow morning those who thought they ruled the city will fall into it. Then there are the judges, the press, and people who love spectacles." She nods and, for the first time in many years, closes her eyes not from fatigue, but from a brief feeling of victory. Night doesn't turn to morning overnight, but as they drive across the river bridge, a flattened cathedral of lights, Holt's phone vibrates with the first news. An unknown source published incriminating evidence. Judge D. Travis, plastic surgeon J. Mays, PR agent K. Holt involvement in an underground network of health salons. The feed is ablaze with retweets. A reporter from a local TV channel manages to record a screensaver with a banner, "From VIP Spa to Shadow Empire." "They wanted you to break," Rose whispers, "but the spider broke earlier." Holt doesn't answer. He thinks about what lies ahead: more explanations from the police, court hearings, and perhaps other enemies. But now the web has worked. They stop in a deserted parking lot. Warm rain knocks on the roof. The old, rusty copper smell of war in his memory for the first time mixes with the fresh smell of an autumn thunderstorm without gunpowder. And in this cocktail there is a taste of freedom, which he has not felt since the moment he left the helicopter of the last rotation. The rain slid across the windshield in viscous threads, as if covered with notes from someone else's confessions. Avery Holt sat in an old pickup truck with the engine turned off, a folder with a stamp on his lap. Phase B Gorgon. The bitter but juicy taste of Granny Smith burst into my gums. The juice ran down his fingers as he lazily took another bite. Opposite is the Julian Mays mansion. An hour ago, the sun didn't even try to rise. 3 dark subs with coats of arms were already looking at the IRS criminal investigation and the state attorney general's office. People in blue windbreakers blocked the entrance and put up tape. "Federal property, no trespass." The surgeon's yard, which always resembled a magazine advertising shoot Architectural Digest, now looked like the set for a court report. Avery placed the folder on the passenger seat. A thin film of sweat on the glass depicted a cardiogram. Every unevenness is someone's broken life. He saw special agents take mats out of the house. The doctor was not handcuffed. The master is cooperating. But his gloved hand was firmly grasped in the surgeon's bicep. Walking nearby were two accountants who had turned pale to the color of deflated balloons. The first stone flew, Holt said, in awe from the crunch of an apple. Further events became more expensive, like water in the wind. The operatives took out the boxes, then a metal safe. Phoenix V, a familiar sign flashed on the side of the processor unit. It was into these racks that he inserted the flash bug 2 nights ago. Now they were being sealed by federal agents under the flashes of cameras from the local television station KView. Mays tried to hold on, but at some point he stubbornly raised his head and glanced around the perimeter as if looking for an opening. His eyes caught the pickup truck's windshield for a moment. The reflection did not reveal Holt, but Avery saw the first crack of real fear in the dim pupils. 5 miles south, in a glass tower Holt public presence, Clara had been calling the federal tax direct line for 50 minutes without success. The SIM card fell apart like a computer after a virus, but a bigger fire was raging on social media. In X, former Twitter trending hashtag #JudgeTravisExposed. In the attached video, the gray-haired, once unapproachable Travis County judge lay on a sofa in a sports robe, and a woman in the semi-darkness. Clara's figure was easily discernible, even if her face was blurry, whispered something in her ear. The entry was accompanied by the title, Health Fund or Entertainment Fund. The secretary ran into the office. Clara, TV Channel 27, is waiting for your comment. And, from the governor's office, they sent me a contract termination form. The phone screen displayed a push notification from the bank. List $312,450. Memo, Liposlim XT Wholesale. Behind him is the second, account balance, $40,812. Where does the minus come from? She exhaled. The password did not match. Authorization error. The corners of her perfectly tinted lips twitched. She rushed into the adjacent open space and pushed the accountant's door with her shoulder. The table is empty. A notification flashed on the monitor. User offline 48H. In the trash can is a piece of perforated tape with 2 words on it. Good luck. Meanwhile, TV channels made the first scandal the second. The federal raid on the surgeon was multiplied by the leaking of intimate materials. On the offline screens of the sports bar, where, ironically, advertising banners for Bellicourse Spa were once hung, they now played clips of searches. News reporters prattled on about unlicensed sales of prescription drugs, undeclared income, and a video library for select investors. Clara dreamed of going on air and declaring that she herself was a victim. But each line was interrupted by something worse. The mayor candidate was found to have secret donations to the Mays Foundation, and the congressman was found to have payments for commercial videos in the same basement. Her phone rang. Unknown. She accepted the challenge and heard a hoarse whisper. You knew it would be like this. Who is this? Someone to whom you promised a fake paradise. The voice belonged to a former client, now the ex-CEO of a technology startup. Yesterday, the board of directors kicked him out after learning about the detox capsule photo. Listen, Michael, we're all. Shut up. A screech crashed through the speaker. You promised to bring only trusted people there. Now I'm out of work, and the clip of my exercises was downloaded by kids in college. The connection has been lost. The office noise was humming, as if an industrial air conditioner had been turned on. Every employee understood that the brand was collapsing. By lunchtime, Clara went to Capital Trust Bank. The squad's chrome pillars gleamed as if they had been polished for someone else's funeral parade. The manager, Merrill, who had previously been clingy and polite, held the glass table today as if it were the railing of a piranha tank. A suspension order has been placed on Holt Public Presence's operating accounts, he said carefully. Warrant? Why the hell on earth? A case of suspected financing of unlawful medical practice. Clara grabbed the chest of the jacket as if it was interfering with oxygen. You know our reputation. She clutched her briefcase. Inside was a flash drive with a presentation for an investment lunch in New York. Now this trip seemed like a trip to the sunken Titanic. As the bank's glass doors closed behind her, the sky began to rain, sweeping away her makeup. In the parking lot, Clara's phone buzzed with notifications, but one message broke through. Emma did not show up for the couple. Her phone is unreachable. Notify the office if you know about her location. She spun around toward the car, her fingers trembling as she moved the key. I dialed my daughter. The answering machine was in English, then in Spanish. The number is temporarily out of service. The gaze darted along the streets, as if the girl could be standing right at the pedestrian crossing. Emma disappeared 6 hours ago. This was discovered after a series of calls to friends, the dean of the campus, even her ex-boyfriend, a rapper. The latter said wearily, "She was streaming yesterday from some motel off Highway 290. She said, 'This is a challenge, disappear for a day.'" Clara shouted into the phone. "Address." The camera was turned towards the door. Only the number 12 was visible. "I won't say anything more. The connection has been lost." Clara's pulse was beating wildly. She remembered Julian's words, "Keep the girl close, she is our key." The key is lost. The swamp drags on. Around 3 in the afternoon, Holt observed an intersection at the Blue Bayou Motel. It was damp. The cars sluggishly crawled through the puddles. He saw how Clara, in her white Q5, stood across the parking lot, jumped out, and rushed to the administrator. The makeup was running, the hair was wet, the shoes were splashing in the mud. Avery took a bite of the new apple. The sound of crunching drowned out the roar of his own heart. He felt no rage, just a dispassionate fixation. The woman rushed between the doors of the rooms, knocking, shouting, "Emma," until the motel security took her out of the barrier. The chick fell out of the golden cage, Holt muttered, wiping the juice off his chin. A minute later, Clara got into the car and covered her face with her hands. But as soon as the engine started, the phone flashed on the panel. She rushed to the screen, unknown number. From the outside, you could see her mouth silently whispering yes, and then the blood drained from her cheeks. Holt watched the disaster with a stony face. His plan did not include kidnappings, but it also did not guarantee that the wave of destruction would stop only affecting the perpetrators. Emma was part of the game. The poles changed, and the girl, accustomed to playing with fire, could get burned the most. While Clara was banging on the steering wheel, trying to call at least someone, the howl of a siren was heard from afar. A police charger was flying towards the intersection. Perhaps the motel employee pressed the panic button. Perhaps the missing adult signal was already marked high risk. Avery slowly started the windshield wipers and took a sip of water. The rainbow film of oil on the puddle in front of the hood blew my thoughts away. Everything that was glitter, the epidermis of a beautiful life, now floated up in dirty rainbow spots. This is how the swamp drags on. First a crack, then a quagmire, then a funnel. He spotted Rose driving a gray Camry across the street. She nodded. Their silent connection was stronger than radio frequencies. Everything follows a chain, but unpredictability is the core of any operation. The swamp phase is confirmed, he whispered to himself, and let the tension release with a long exhale. Clara, in despair, sharply turned the steering wheel and disappeared into the traffic, splashing mud on pedestrians. Behind her are 2 traffic police cars. Holt looked after him and threw the apple core into the bag. The outline of the plan withstood the first onslaught, May's arrest and search. Clara is a financial and reputational attack. Emma disappeared from the board. The figure they had placed as bait in his trap had now itself disappeared into the shadows. It was impossible to predict everything. But the storm was raised by them, and it fell inexorably. The pickup started moving slowly, like a tank at a crossing. Avery turned on the radio. The jazz saxophone played viscous notes, the music of the Louisiana swamps, where the water swallows the lights and distributes them only to its own ghosts. In the rearview mirror, the outline of the motel dissolved into the rain. He didn't feel victory, just a methodical movement to the next point of the plan. The swamp knows how to attract. Those who step on its squelching carpet rarely return the same person. Outside, there was a smell of damp earth and gasoline. Inside the cabin, a tart and sour apple. Avery Holt continued to chew while the turn signals clicked, and it seemed as if time itself was slowly chewing the city along with him. The thunderstorm, the third in a week, clanged over Austin as if the sky was being split with crowbars. The wind ruffled the campaign banners, the same faces that had shone on the pages of Texas Monthly in Clara Holt's column just a month ago. Now, a new college was circulating around the city chatting. These same people, only with the added caption, "Did you pay for your vitamin?" and the play icon on top. Click, and a self-taught street journalist opened up. Footage from the Bellecourse basement, where latex and pearls were intertwined in shameful knots, and the director's voiceover was the baritone of Julian Mays. Clara stood at the center of most scenes. The face could not be hidden either by the fog of special effects or the shadows of light panels. As soon as the camera caught the profile, the pixels formed the familiar line of the cheekbones, the unmistakable contour of the lips with the upper one barely bitten. The viral video grew like rust on cast iron pipes. At night, and it was already being replicated by federal news reporters, in the morning, and CNN placed a large red, explicit sign over the logo. At first, social network algorithms tried to retouch explicit fragments, but users turned up the brightness, added spiteful memes, and the material surfaced again, like the stench from a sewer. Julian's mansion was the first to feel the physical echo of shame. When black Suburbans with lights appeared in the driveway, neighbors were curious who had arrived in a helicopter, but the doors of the vans swung open, and the wrought iron gates cowered under the onslaught of the feds in yellow vests. Bright blue tape surrounded the basement, dogs prowled along the edge of the pool, and reporters covered the lawn, shouting about the industrial accounting of depravity, hidden cameras, and illegal drugs found in the tunnels under the sauna. The sound of the crystal fountain drowned out Mace's moans as he was escorted to the armored van. An unbuttoned shirt cuff, dull eyes for the first time, the surgeon looked not like an advertising body, but like a crumpled napkin after an expensive dinner. By evening, the familiar Holt public presence sign on Congress Avenue had gone dark. It was dark inside, only the stub of a table lamp cast light on the ruined table. Clara still held the phone to her ear, although the line was silent. Most clients terminated contracts with one touch, like erasing unnecessary contact. The rest demanded the return of the advance and threatened to file a class action lawsuit. The card she tried to swipe at the ATM said, "Insufficient funds." The company's internal account was reset by Rose's script. Spending on the fictitious Liposlim XT was now listed as an IRS debt. When the phone shook with another notification, she no longer hoped for good news, but the notification turned out to be a link to an article in Medium, "How I Treated Austin's Elite and What It Taught Me." Author, Rose Marchenko. The cover is a hot field hospital superimposed in a translucent collage on a photo of the Bellecourse doors. In the third paragraph, Clara clasped her hand tightly over her mouth. Rose did not show compromising footage directly, only hints. When the client wanted a detox, adrenaline euphoria was hidden under the vitamin syringe. When he was looking for youth, he left pearlescent traces of regrets on the silk. But one screenshot was enough. Clara's hand with a characteristic birthmark on her wrist, holding a heart-shaped pill near someone's tongue. This was enough to make half the PR services market rush to clean out their portfolios, as if they were afraid that they would be the next to be pulled out of the mud. The whole house went dark. The blinds were closed. The curtains on the first floor fell down like torn posters. Inside, the air conditioner whistled silently, but the walls were still sweating, giving off the bitter smell of empty bottles. For the first time in many years, Clara unplugged the mansion phone from the socket so as not to hear the malicious calls from the press. There was only one lamp burning in the kitchen, only the bread knife was shining, like a small guillotine on a marble board. Emma had been missing for 24 hours, and maternal fear was mixed with shame. The police recorded the report as missing adult without Amber Alert priority and suggested waiting 2 days. The dean of the university sent a dry letter. The student was expelled for behavior that casts a shadow on the reputation of the campus. But in the evening, the front door slammed, the key card lock no longer worked, so the girl feverishly pounded the door with her fist. In the hallway, Emma looked like a wreck of a fantasy of freedom. Smudged mascara seemed to be running down her cheeks for 3 days. Her hair was tangled, and a crooked cotton bandage hung crookedly on her right arm. While the mother shouted, "Where have you been, Lord?" the daughter whispered incoherently, "They thought I was the golden ticket, and I'm tired." A sudden seizure shook her thin body. She screamed, "Don't touch it," and jerked to the side, slipping on the wet rug. There was a dry click, like a branch bursting in the cold. The broken radius bone shifted under the skin, the arm hung in an unnatural bend, and a squeal echoed through the hall, as if they were cutting silk. The ambulance took a long time and went through the intersection twice, taking a detour. The city was living in a storm traffic jam. Clara held Emma's head, whispered a monotonous prayer, not even believing in God, just so as not to listen to her own inner howl. When the doctors took the girl away, they warned, "We need to put a plate in. Insurance, is in question." The receptionist didn't look Holt in the eyes when she recognized her last name. That same night, in the hospital corridor, a ticker on the TV announced a new wave of arrests. The Texas Rangers showed arrest warrants for 3 of May's deputies. Right in the ward, you could hear someone in handcuffs being led down the corridor in a regular formation, their neighbor in the corridor, an investor caught in a photo from the sauna baptistry. "I just signed the pledge, and it has already been canceled." Clara was sitting on a plastic bench, but every step in the corridor sounded like a sledgehammer hitting her name. By morning, the press was stationed at the gates of the Holt mansion. Everyone was waiting for the hostess to come out and confess, but her Tesla never left. The Reputation gas tank was empty, the Trust battery was burnt out. She ordered groceries via contactless delivery and closed the doors. The nanny had been fired long ago. The housekeepers were running away like rats from a ship. The huge living room smelled of crying. The blinds trembled, gathering news. The salon manager was arrested. The tax report was expiring. Clara Holt was a defendant, perhaps a future witness for the prosecution. At noon, the courier, wet from head to toe, brought an envelope without a return address. A narrow, long box. Inside there is a thin flash drive in plastic packaging. No accompanying note. Hand-embossed stamp only. GM, the same initials that once shone on the leather bag with the mask. Clara clicked the latch of the laptop. The system spent an endless amount of time checking the reliability of the media, as if giving it the last chance not to open it. The video file was called Cherry Mass Cut_Final, MP4. In the first second, the camera shook, forming a pale strip of light, a marker of the start of recording in the valve basement. The noise of voices is muffled, but women's laughter cuts through the low-frequency hum, the clinking of glasses, and here is Clara's face in profile, affectionately illuminated by red neon. She sits on her knees by the sofa, her hair pulled back into a high ponytail. There is an invisible interviewer in front of her. "Do you really think he will notice?" asks a male voice with a laugh. Clara smiles, her lips glistening with wax. "It's broken. I'm just waiting for him to die," she says clearly, like a rehearsal. The camera zooms in. The exit light is reflected in the pupils. The file is terminated. The pale figure of Clara herself was reflected on the laptop screen. She slowly closed the lid, as if trying to catch her own shadow between the frames. The room seemed echoing. Even the rain had died down, giving power to the silence. A howling draft echoed through the wooden beams of the ceiling. The crystal lamps went out. The power grid was turned off by the supplier for non-payment. Clara ran her finger across the screen as if across a cold forehead. The words, "I'm waiting for him to die," stood in her ears as if they had been said by someone else, but she recognized the bitterness of her timbre unmistakably. Outside, the evening city was melting into the damp, heavy air. Somewhere on the horizon, lightning flashed again, illuminating the rented facades of Integrity. Austin breathed the burnt-out lights, and in the Holt mansion, his former owner sat in the middle of the echoing living room, and the acorn of hatred, which she had so carefully nurtured, finally cracked the husk, releasing the fetid core. The red eye of the answering machine was blinking at the telephone. The voices of creditors, talk show producers, and unfamiliar men remained there, whispering proposals to agree. But Clara didn't press play. She had only one recording that she could never rewind or forget, her own confession, sent by someone who knew how to wait quietly than anyone. The last drop of rain fell on the table through a crack in the roof, the blood of a house that is dying as slowly as legends die. And among this damp emptiness, the flash drive silently glistened, like a fishbone in the throat of a luxurious beast that was choking on itself. The police report was short, like an erased video camera film. June 24th, 214 fire in a hangar on the southern outskirts of Austin. Localized by 307. Avery Holt, a veteran and security license holder, was believed to be inside. The discovered charred remains match the dimensions. Identification is difficult due to the high temperature. The case has been transferred to the medical examiner's office. No signs of arson were found. The newspapers added to the drama. Chapter of scandal closed. The same ex-soldier possibly involved in the leak of incriminating evidence died before testifying. The television played an alarming lower title, and the next day they forgot about the fire. The city was accustomed to changing sensations. Rose Marchenko learned about what had happened 1,000 miles away. She finished an interview for documentarians, left the stuffy basement of the filming studio, checked her phone, and the screen was scattered with news. The text jumped like he had a fever. Burned alive, motive unknown, investigation suspended. She stood in the middle of the parking lot, smelling of tar and grilled tacos, and felt the heat of emptiness rise in her throat. The horizon line trembled, the sky beat with heat on the temples, but one thought froze inside. He is not the one who burns in vain. That same evening, she received a letter. Real, paper, no stamp, no sender's address. There is only a thin line of ink on the envelope, like a scar. Inside was a piece of paper and a bank receipt for exactly $1,401, the cost of the plates for Emma's arm and the surgical bill for her rehabilitation. 4 lines were written on the paper. You knew they would rot. Thanks for showing me where to look. The account is closed, but the road is not. D. No signature, no date. Letter only D as a duty symbol of someone going into the night. The handwriting was uneven, but Rose recognized the pressure with which the soldiers wrote in their notebooks, as if they were using a blade rather than ink to write letters. She turned the envelope over. There was a barely noticeable dent on the flap, as if someone had thrown a hot match into it and immediately extinguished it. The burning smell of the paper left no doubt. The letter had been near the fire, but had not burned. Rose didn't sleep that night. She flipped through satellite maps, looking at where the old Highway 90 spur ran, where the desert turned into a dry river bed, where long abandoned trailer parks stood like rusty jellyfish on the sand. She remembered Avery once mentioning, "If you disappear, then to where the night smells of dust, and the stars still look like holes in the fabric of the world." In the morning, she packed her bag, threw a canister of water and a pack of old VIP cards into the trunk beautiful bark, and like an inexplicable talisman, an empty cartridge case from the signal that Holt once gave. The car pulled out of the parking lot, kicking up a cloud of sand. The highway swallowed her up like a long black film without end credits. The road led through increasingly sparse gas stations. The shadows of the cacti lay on the asphalt, turning it into piano keys on which the sun played. When the fuel gauge went to 0, a roadside last-mile mart appeared on the side of the road. Inside, it looked like a museum of dissolution. 5-year-old chips, postcards with faded cacti, and soda whose bubbles seemed frozen forever. The cashier, an old man in a plaid shirt, looked up lazily as Rose handed over a plastic bill. "There's nothing beyond 90, ma'am. Next gas station is 130 miles away." "That's enough for me," she replied. "Are you looking for someone?" She smiled from the corner of her mouth. "Someone who knows how to get lost." The old man shrugged his shoulders as if he had seen 100 such wanderers. The desert, like a gossiping grandmother, does not keep rumors, but it remembers faces. By midday, the air had become viscous, and the engine was humming like a drum. The GPS signal was cut off right on the border of the old military training ground. The road immediately turned into a gravel tongue that led to a flat depression where an underground lake once flowed. A sign stuck out to the left, Tierra Muerta RV lot sold as is. Trailers lined up in a crooked letter S, but most were empty. Broken windows, doors tied with rope. Only on the last, far edge, hung a brand new padlock and sparkled glass. Rose turned off the engine, and the silence hit like a shock. The dust that the radiator fan kicked up settled on the hood, turning the silver into a matte felt layer. She walked out, closed the door, and the bang echoed off the metal trailer bodies. At the entrance to the last house, there was a stone. Under it, there was a hunting knife without a holster and a piece of paper pressed to the ground by the blade. There is one word on the piece of paper: further. An arrow sketched in coal pointed behind the trailer. There, behind the narrow body, a scorched path could be seen, as if someone was dragging a heavy metal object along it. The path ended at a dilapidated barn. Its door was held on one hinge, and the inside smelled of gasoline and dead wood. Several metal boxes, charred boards, a black hole in the trench traces of fire on all sides. This is where police would find the story after the fire. But the barn was much smaller than the hangar that burned down in Austin. So it was. A trace, proof for those who are looking. There was a hatch in the back wall of the barn. The lid opened heavily, like the lid of a coffin after rain, and led into a narrow earthen hole. There was a smell of coolant, dust, and cologne that had once been expensive and was now worn down to a bitter taste. Rose walked down the wooden stairs, counting the click of her own steps. A tiny bunker awaited below. A table, 2 cans of water, an old portable generator, a cot, a pillowcase stuffed with dry sage, and a shadow sitting against the wall. At first, she seemed only a silhouette, a play of light through the ventilation grill. But when the eyes got used to it, the shadow became a man, angular, tanned, with a short, cropped head. Avery Holt looked up, the same steely gaze he had seen in his patrol days. Only fatigue settled in the corners of the eyes, or peace. "We had to hide our tracks," he said quietly, his voice hoarse, as if he had not spoken out loud for a long time. "The city loves drama. A fire is the best ending." The report indicated accident. Rose sat down on an old box. "And the forensic doctors wasted their time identifying the teeth. Other people's teeth? Coyote skull," he confirmed. "His bone is almost as thick as a human's, and his teeth fit the pattern. I added my old army chain. They quickly closed the case." She shook her head. "So you watched the whole show from the sidelines. I saw their house of cards collapse." He turned to the wall where there was a map of Texas with red markings. "And I realized, if I stay, mine will collapse too. The press, the courts, the memoirs, all this would continue to twirl me like meat on a skewer. That's why the letter." Rose took out the envelope and held it up to the light. "You knew they would rot." "I knew, yes, but you wanted to see it with your own eyes." "I saw it," Holt nodded, "and I realized how emptiness smells after rot. There, in the very center, there is nothing, even triumph." The silence stretched out, like the stinging silence before a battle. Beyond the ceiling, a branch of a dry bush scraped along the roof, making the sound of distant sand in the clock. Rose asked, "What do you do to live here?" "Water, shooting practice on empty cans. I do what I can. I sold some of the equipment and bought rations. At night, I catch radio emissions from military satellites and listen to the noise of the universe. I thought I'd find peace." He smiled a little ironically, "And I found something like a wall without windows." "Walls are my specialty," she noted. "I left too. The press tour is over. All talk shows have the same topic. I felt that I heard my own echo more often than people." Avery turned, assessing her face. He was not going to rush the question. His military restraint had not gone away. But his gaze became softer when he saw the scar on her eyebrow, the same one that he had once sewn up in the field hospital. "What's wrong with Emma's hand?" he asked after a pause. "The treatment was paid for." Rose nodded at the receipt, still clutched in her fingers. She's in a rehabilitation clinic, and her mother sold the mansion at auction just to pay the fines. Holt closed his eyes as if he was giving the words memory. Sometimes it seems like I haven't won anything. You pulled people out of someone else's quagmire, and now. She looked at him intently. Pull yourself out. He grinned. A person who hides from the world does not make plans. The world is big. Rose stood up and walked over to the table, on which lay a bundle of dusty fabric. She unfolded it. Inside there was a part of a disassembled carbine, a flask, and a tattered notebook. On the cover faded, "Find evidence. You had plans. It was just all about the war." He touched the notebook as if it were a wound. "Do you want me to come back?" "No. I want you to come out. Came out to a land where there is no past owner." Behind the wall, the wind howled and hit the ventilation. It seemed as if the desert itself was pushing the words. He stood up and pulled up his sleeves, freeing his wrists, which were scorched white by the sun. "I planted a bunker inside myself," he said quietly, "the same as outside." "Then get out with the shadows," Rose replied. "Empty land is better suited for a house than the ashes of an old one." He looked at the metal hatch leading outside. The light from it was dazzlingly white, as if it was morning outside the door. "Are you finally home?" she asked. The voice trembled a little, although the usual dryness of a medic still lived in it. "No," he answered, and took a step towards the stairs. "But now you can build your own." Rose smiled for the first time without bitterness. They climbed to the surface, and from the first step, it seemed that the desert was dissolving their traces as quickly as they walked forward. But the new trail is also a map. The sun was rising over the horizon, and the light clung to every shard of glass in the abandoned trailers, an invitation to a future that does not wait for permission to begin. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.